Hi, welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to make a really famous Greek dish, stuffed grape leaves. Now in my family they were called Yaprakia. At most Greek restaurants and at Greek festivals you'll find them called Dolmas or Dolmathes. But you know what? It really doesn't matter what you call them. They're absolutely delicious and they're really different. The grape leaf adds a flavor that just can't be found in any other vegetable, any other green. And they're delicious. They're pretty easy to make. They're just a little time consuming. This is my mother's hallmark dish. She makes the best grape leaves around. And she'll be here to show you how to roll them so yours can look pretty neat too. To make yaprakia, you'll need 1.5 pounds of lean ground beef or lean ground lamb. It's pretty hard to find lean ground lamb, so your best bet is to go with the lean ground beef. You'll need a cup of long grain white rice, 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. You'll need chicken broth or beef broth or even vegetable broth. You'll need a large onion, a couple of cloves of garlic. For seasoning, you'll need some dill weed, some oregano, and here I've got some Italian oregano and Greek oregano from my garden. You'll need some mint, at least 1 lemon, and of course, you'll need a jar of grape leaves. If you can't find the grape leaves in your grocers, be sure to ask someone. It's probably there somewhere in an aisle, just hiding a bit. Look for it. And you need a little bit of olive oil. Now be sure to look us up on our website, Tweeton.com. You'll find this recipe for the grape leaves, and you'll find all the other recipes that we've used on this show. Now the first challenge, and the first thing you need to do, is get the jar of grape leaves open. Now when you open the jar of grape leaves, you will discover that they are very tightly packed in rolls. And because they're so tightly packed, sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge getting them out. So you just kind of work your way, inching them out little by little. Taking one roll at a time. There we go. Now you can see, this is what I was talking about. They're rolled and then placed into the jar. Now obviously this is a lot easier. You will not use the grape leaves as is, as they come out of the jar. What you want to do is separate them and rinse them well under cold running water. The reason for this is because the grape leaves have been packed and processed in brine. They're really too salty right now to use. What I'm going to do is just rinse the leaves, individual leaves, under running water, cold running water, and then I'm going to place them in a colander to drain. I really don't want them too wet when it comes time to roll them up. When you find torn leaves, if they're really badly torn, like this one is, rinse it and set it aside. We'll use it for something special later. I finished rinsing all the grape leaves. I placed them in a colander on top of a dish and they're draining. And this is good because they need a few minutes to drain. The torn leaves are right here. I've just made a pile and we're going to use them also, but they won't be rolled up into the stuffed grape leaves. I wanted to show you the differences that you can find when you're using grape leaves that are preserved in a jar. If you look here, This is a classic grape leaf shape. It's nice, it's round, it's nice and big. It does have a stem, and this stem, of course, would have to be snipped off. But grape leaves are from nature, and God loves variety, and no two leaves are ever the same. This is a classic grape leaf. Over here is same grape leaf, maybe same plant, but just a different style. Look at it. It has deep cut-ins like this that you'll have to work around when you're stuffing the grape leaves. Some of them are large, like these two, and some of them can actually be quite small. The first thing you need to do when you get started on the filling is to get a large onion and chop it up as finely as possible. And we're going to cook the onion with some garlic, just a little bit. This is a large onion, very large onion, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. A little more onion, it's not going to be a problem. Getting a little weepy here. I've prepared the onions. They're in the pan. Now all I need to do is chop some garlic up. Anywhere from 2 to 4 cloves of garlic. This is the tail end of a head of garlic, so I'm just going to chop it all up. So just finely mince the garlic and add it to your onions in the pan. Okay, garlic's done, onion's done. Just a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Turn the heat on. And let this cook, saute lightly until the onions are translucent and they'll be ready to add to the filling. Now while the onions and garlic are cooking, I'm going to get started on some of the other filling ingredients. My mother has a helpful hint. She finds it easier to mix the rice with all the seasonings before you add the meat. Put the meat on top, and then when you go to mix it all together, the seasonings are already throughout the rice mixture. First thing you need is 1 cup of long grain white rice. And a little teeny bit more or less isn't going to make any difference whatsoever. So there's the rice. Now for seasonings, you need a tablespoon, heaping tablespoon each, of mint, oregano, and dill. I'll start with the easiest, dill. And dill is one of those things, one of those herbs that's just used extensively in Greek cooking. And I'm planning on getting a dill plant myself and see if I can grow my own. I do use a lot of it. Okay, there's a tablespoon into the rice. Here I have some fresh mint from my backyard. In this little container here I have dried mint that I dried when I harvested it from my backyard. I'm going to use a combination. I'm going to get a tablespoon of the dried mint. And you can see I dried these leaves whole, so I'm going to have to kind of crush them in my hand before I add them to the rice mixture. There, that's fine. Here I have some Greek oregano that I just harvested from my garden. And in this hand I have some Italian oregano that I harvested a few days ago, and it's been drying on my counter. I'm going to use a little bit of both, and in addition I'm going to use some dried oregano I have left over that I had harvested a couple of months ago. So a heaping tablespoon of dried oregano. There's really nothing that's quite so satisfying as eating the fruits of your labor, and it's really fun to be able to use herbs that you've grown yourself. And they're really not hard, especially if you have them in pots on your patio or deck. Okay, that's about a tablespoon, and again, these are whole leaves, so I'm going to crumble them up in my hand before I add them to the rice mixture. And for fun, I'm going to use a little bit of the fresh mint and a little bit of the fresh Greek oregano. I'm just tearing off the leaves, and I'm going to chop them finely and stick them in with the dried herbs. Okay, there we have it, fresh herbs too. You'll need about a teaspoon of salt, because you've got the meat that needs to be flavored, and then you have the rice that needs to be flavored. But you don't want to overdo the salt, because even though you've rinsed them, the grape leaves are still a little bit salty. And half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of pepper. The only thing left now is just to give this a little bit of a stir and wait for the onions and garlic to be done. The onions are done. They're nice and cooked. They're translucent, but they're not browned. And I'm just going to let them sit. I've taken them off the heat, let them cool down a bit. To the rice mixture, I want to add the juice of half a lemon. So here I have my lemon. And of course, I'll remove any seeds before I put the juice on the rice. Alright, just a half a lemon. And now I want to add an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. And the onions have cooled, so I'm going to add them. With all the olive oil. Now this version of Yaprakia is not very oily, and it's not very fatty, because I've used very lean meat and just the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm not going to pour any more olive oil on it. I know that in some recipes call for an awful lot of olive oil, but sometimes it has a tendency to give almost a bitter characteristic to the Yaprakia. And now it's time to add the meat. 1.5 pounds of very, very lean ground beef, or ground lamb if you can find it lean. You could even use a combination. You could use half lamb, half beef, pork. Greek people do eat a lot of pork. And if you were super duper cholesterol conscious, you could even use a little bit of ground turkey or ground chicken. So these 2 packages together come up to about 1.5 pounds. Now comes the fun part. You've got to mix this by hand. You can try to use a spoon, but it's a lost cause. Get in there with your fingers, mix it thoroughly, and then be sure you wash up. And by mixing the things together with the rice first, it's a lot easier to incorporate the meat. And also having the meat at a little bit of a room temperature rather than ice cold. Alright. This baby it's mixed. It's ready to go inside some grape leaves. This is my mother, Antonia Zographis. She is 100% Greek, and she's going to show us how to roll these grape leaves. It's a little bit of an art, a little bit of a skill. We're ready to show you how to put together all this stuff. We've got our rinsed and drained grape leaves over here. We've got our filling mixture all put together. We have these little bits of torn up leaves, and we've got our pot. This is about a 5-quart Dutch oven. The first thing you're going to want to do is take some of these torn leaves and just make a single layer on the bottom. And the purpose for this is so that as the grape leaves cook, they won't burn. This layer of torn up grape leaves will serve to protect the grape leaf rolls so they won't burn, they won't stick. And just a single layer is fine. Okay, Mom?
Did you tell them how you make the...
Yes, I told everybody how to make the filling.
Okay.
All right.
Just
Now,
take a leaf, put it on your palm of your hand. Take as much as you...
now, are you going to use the same amount of filling for every grape leaf?
Well, according to the size of the grape leaf. Some of them, if they're smaller, I'd use smaller amount. Fold it over.
Okay.
Both sides, and take it with your hand and fold this end up.
Kind of like making a burrito.
Yeah, just like that. See, there it is.
Okay, and you
And
put
then
it seam side down?
Yes, seam side down.
Okay.
This is a smaller leaf, so we use a smaller amount because we don't want them to burst open.
Okay, do you roll them real tight, or do you leave it a little bit
Well,
loose?
no, as tight as you can.
Okay.
Simple. Can't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a big one.
Now, what happens when you get one like that has a hole? You just
Oh,
work
just
around
forget
it?
about it.
All right.
You just don't worry about the holes or anything. It's just you just want the inside meat to be.
Okay, so they should be kind of long, thin
Yeah.
cylinders.
Yeah. Just try to encase all the meat inside, and then just kind of roll it up.
Okay. Okay,
It's
that looks
cute.
beautiful. I forgot to have you tell our audience, you use the inside, you put the meat on the inside of the leaf.
The leaf,
You
yes.
leave the shiny,
Yeah.
pretty part outside, and the part with the veins is where you put the meat.
Yes. These are delicious.
Yeah, I know. They were Daddy's favorite, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
That's my father. Is this a recipe that Grandma taught you?
Yes. Everything I know, I learned from my mother.
And everything I know, I learned from my mother. Okay, do you just use one layer of the grape leaves, or do you? Because it
No.
looks like you might have the bottom completely filled in a few seconds,
That's okay. You put them on top of the others.
and you don't have to separate them.
You don't separate them. You don't do anything to them.
Just put 'em-
Just put them like that. And if you put something on top, like a dish or something, after when they're cooking, then it would keep them from unrolling. That's the object of just don't let them unroll.
Yeah, I'm doing the really hard part here, putting him in the pot. Now these Yaprakia have been a favorite in my family for years. My father loved them. Our whole family loves them. My husband loves them. And my husband's family grew to love them. So my mom shared the recipe with my mother-in-law and told her what to do, and she made it. She made this stuff. She tried her first time out, but unfortunately she got the proportions a little wrong, and she made her Yaprakia so they were big and really huge and really long, and when she served them to her family, they kind of chuckled and they called them cigars instead of Dolmathes. And so I'm rolling this huge one in my mother-in-law's honor. It's kind of an inside family joke now. We're down to the last few. We've been rolling for a while now. And if you look in the pot, you'll see they're in concentric circles. They're placed in concentric circles, very tightly packed, close to each other. And that reason is so that when they cook, they won't jostle around and bubble all over the place. You want them tightly packed as you place them.
Sure.
Well, looks like we're going to have some left over. I don't know whether I want to make soup. I'm kind of worn out. What if we just put some meatballs on top?
Try it. Try it.
Okay. Oh yeah, I guess you could just make like hamburgers, little
Patties.
balls, and just put some tomato sauce on it and cook it over the stove.
Yes.
For a light lunch. That might work out better.
Yes.
Okay, we're down to our last. So watch this technique. This is the award-winning technique here.
Fix it.
When it's my husband's birthday, my mom always makes a batch just for him because he loves that. He loves this stuff. Of course, we all do. And the grape leaves, they have such a different flavor. They are so different from cabbage or anything else.
And you can buy the grape leaves in the grocery store.
Yeah. All right, we're ready to get these things cooking. But there are 2 ingredients I forgot to tell you about that you have to have if you're going to make Yaprakia, Dolmathes. You have to have a plate that will fit into the pot, and you need your own cooking rock. Now this rock is from my backyard, and it's been washed, and so it's all ready to go. Hey, look who just popped in. Now we've got 3 generations, 2 Tweetons and 1 Grape. My mom, me, and my daughter Sarah. And Sarah will do something no one else can do to make this a really delicious dish. But you need to have some chicken broth or beef broth or vegetable broth or even water, and you need to cover the rolled grape leaves with the broth or water or broth and water mixture. Sarah, could you put some water in this can? And
oh, yes.
the grape leaves.
Is that good?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine. Just a little bit more is fine. Okay, and to this, you want to add the juice of that other half of the lemon. And the pulp, of course. Okay. Now comes the fun part, dealing with the plate and the rock. Before I put the plate on, I'm going to put another layer, single layer of these torn up grape leaves. Just so nothing sticks. All right, now here's what you need to do. You need to get a heavy plate that will fit inside the pot. These plates that I have fit inside the pot, but they're not very heavy, so I'm actually using 3 of them,
Oops.
and I'm turning them over. Yep, I knew that. Turning them over like this and putting them on top. And the reason I'm doing that is because as this cooks, it's going to cook on a low simmer. We don't want it to be boiling rapidly because we don't want those little things, you know, jostling all over the place and coming undone. Now, the other thing is your rock. You put your rock on. These babies are going nowhere. They're just going to get cooked. I put the pot on the stove. I'm going to gradually heat it, bring it to a simmer where it's just bubbling, and then just keep it at that simmer, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour until the rice is completely cooked. The Yaprakia cooked for about 55 minutes. Now, I took them off the heat after they were cooked, and they've just been sitting for about 20 minutes. That's another step. Still steaming, even though it's been sitting for 25 minutes. Don't they look cute? Now, Greek people traditionally serve dolmathes one of 2 ways. They'll serve it with lemon sauce. Another traditional way of eating yaprakia is with plain, unsweetened yogurt. Those are good.